This happened about 11 years ago. Back then, I had just broken up with my girlfriend. Let's call her Y. About a week after our breakup, I started to get these texts from an unknown number. Let me just sum up what the first message said. I'm sorry to bother you. My name is T, and I work with Y. The truth is, I started to really like her. I know that you dated her, so I thought I'd come to you for some advice. My first reaction was, what the fuck? Who the hell does that? Why would this guy know my number and about my relationship with Y? The text gave off such a creepy vibe. It was actually longer than that. It stated in more depth his love for my ex. It ended with, please teach me how you got her to love you. Notice me, senpai. I thought of ignoring it, but I had a couple of beers on board, so I decided to reply. I found it funny in a way. I said something like, I haven't been in touch with Y, but you know that it might not be the best timing. But if you like her that much, I guess it's up to you to let her know. Anyway, I got a reply about an hour later. Thank you. Thank you very much for your reply and your support. It gave me courage. I'm glad, and I will do my best. As you might have guessed, I didn't reply to that. From then on, I got a text from this guy every single day. It was so cringy. Thank you so much for your words of encouragement. They give me the strength and courage I need. Yep, I didn't reply to that, but this guy would text even if I didn't reply. I summoned the strength to speak to her today. At work today, we had to place an order for stock. It was so great. Another one came through. She bumped into me on the way to work. It was so great, my friend. We talked about stuff besides work. I don't give a shit about him, and he sounded like a major creep, so again, I didn't reply. But it was kind of interesting for a while to get the daily report of a weird dude's life. It was around this point the content of his texts changed. Why doesn't Y know how I feel? Why isn't she noticing my advances? She must have loads of boyfriends, male friends, whatever. Why does everyone laugh at me when I speak to her? I see people trying to hide their smiles. I really hate girls with lots of guy friends. Shit, I thought. What have I gotten me and Y into? I should have told him to fuck off ages ago. Before I could think of what to do, he sent another text. I have just thought up a great plan, my friend. I'm gonna get some friends to attack her after her night shift tonight, and I'll jump in to save her. I'm sure that'll win her over. The way me and Y ended things was bad, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't about to let her get jumped by some weirdo and his friends, so I had to let her know. I sent her a text. I explained everything in the text about her co-workers' plans for her after her night shift. I even offered to pick her up and take her home. Her reply was unexpected, to say the least. The guy you're speaking of doesn't work here. The only male co-worker I have is the owner of the store. It's true that I'm working tonight, but only till 11 p.m. And then I'll be leaving with my friends. There's police about, so don't worry about me. It was actually quite a relieving message, if not a bit cold. I was glad she was safe, but T, the guy who was emailing me, genuinely was making my skin crawl. I mean, he didn't even work with her. I sent him a text. Look, creep, I told Y about your little plan. Don't lay a finger on her, got it? T didn't reply. When it started to get dark outside, I started to get twitchy. I was thinking of my ex, working the night shift, and I was also thinking of that weird guy. I was checking my phone to see if he replied, but he hadn't. Rain started to fall. It passed 11 p.m., his proposed time to attack, and my phone was still silent. Nothing from my ex either. I began to relax a little. My ex was calling. I answered it. She was crying and in a panic. I'm on my way home and I'm by the station. What do I do? What do I do? A guy's been following me the whole way. Whoa, what's going on? I was in a panic too. I'm too scared to look behind me. Then the line abruptly cut. My doorbell rang. My heart was racing. I went to the peephole and saw my ex at the door. I quickly opened the door and let her in. She lives on her own, like I do. So I guess that's why she came to mine. She was as white as a ghost and was crying, covered in rainwater too. I locked the door immediately. "Did the person following you see you go into my apartment?" I asked. "I don't know, I guess so. He was really close as I got to your door. I guess, yeah, probably," wife said. I ran out to my balcony. I looked, but there was no sign of anyone out there. I grabbed my phone and called T's number. "I'm calling the police. I have all the proof I need to show them if you try anything stupid tonight." I couldn't hear a word. Just the sound of rain crashing down in the background and his breathing. Then the line cut. I knew he was out there somewhere. I know. I should have contacted the police sooner, but when you're young, it's sometimes the last thing you want to do. Also, I was a real dick when I was young. Maybe I was scared of getting in trouble. We sat and chatted all night. I convinced her not to go to work the next day and to be ready to go to the police if anything happened. We shot nervous glances at the door all night while the rain lashed the windows. I was expecting to hear the doorbell at any moment. But thankfully, we went the whole night without incident. The next day, I got a huge text from T. It went something like this. "I'm truly sorry. My name isn't T. I don't work with your ex. I went to her shop and I fell in love with her at first sight. A couple of days later, I was in a local restaurant and I saw her there. I overheard her talking about the recent breakup with you. She seemed like she wasn't fazed by the breakup. Well, at least her friends were making it seem that way. They mentioned your name. They were getting drunk too, and they all went to the toilet together. And that's when I saw my opportunity. She left her phone on the table, you see, and that's where I found your number. I'm sorry for what I did." After this weird confession, nothing further happened, and I didn't hear from T again. I didn't know the guy's true identity, or what he looked like, so I couldn't do anything about him. I couldn't report him, I couldn't warn anybody about him. All I could do was give the number to the police. And I did, but nothing came of it. This didn't impact me as much as Y. But so far, this is the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me. So T, on behalf of myself and Y, let's not meet. I remember it was raining heavily that day. I went shopping with my sister in the morning. We lived together in an apartment at the time. The weather was good in the morning. The sun was shining, so I put some of our laundry out to dry in the garden. By lunch, torrential rain set in, a real downpour. We drove to an inside mall far from our apartment. There was no way we'd get back before the laundry was drenched. We just gave up on it. I mean, even if we rushed and there was no traffic, the laundry would still be saturated. It couldn't be helped. Later, when we returned home, the whole apartment was turned upside down. At first I thought it was an earthquake, but things like the dresser, wardrobes, and the desk weren't down on the ground. Then it became evident that someone had been in our apartment. Someone had been through all of our belongings. It was just really creepy. We called the police immediately. Before long, a police officer arrived. He looked over the place and took some notes. He asked us what we thought was missing. We had been so shocked that we hadn't performed a complete check. My sister and I looked in our respective rooms, and all our valuables were still lying on our dresser too. Strange. I was searching through my dresser drawers when I discovered that my underwear was missing. My sister rushed into my bedroom to tell me that her underwear was missing too. I didn't care about mine because, they weren't anything special, but my sister was upset. She liked buying expensive lingerie. The policeman told us that the thief must have entered through the garden and broke the window to our back door, and that's how he gained access. The officer said that because our laundry was still outside, in the driving rain, the thief must have guessed that the apartment was empty. The officer creeped me out by saying the thief almost certainly knew that two women lived there because of the objects he chose to take. He said that the thief may have even watched us leave. Gave me the creeps because of all the times I've dried my underwear outside. He could have been watching, and maybe some even went missing without me noticing. God knows. He might have been watching us for a while. The officer assured us that he would try his best to track down the underwear thief. He said that if he catches the thief, we'd be the first to know. I thanked him, but I knew it must be difficult to track this guy down. We set about cleaning up the room. It felt so gross knowing that some weirdo was in our house, trashing it while looking for our underwear. We consoled ourselves with the fact that none of our expensive possessions were missing. After a couple of months, life seemingly went back to normal, until one day, I got a call from the police station. The thief had been caught. This guy had done it multiple times apparently, and they'd finally caught him. The police said that they had recovered some of our possessions and asked us to come down to the station to retrieve them. I asked my sister to come along with me. To be honest, we didn't have much interest in getting the underwear back, but we wanted to go just in case the thief took something we didn't know about. When we got there, the policeman who called led us to a separate room, and there was a huge pile of underwear on the table. It was so creepy. The policeman pointed at some underwear off to the side and said, "Is this your underwear?" How the hell did he know which ones were ours? Was this guy some sort of panty psychic? Then I thought, oh God, is this the criminal? Is this the guy who was in our apartment? As these dark thoughts danced across my mind, the policeman stared at me, waiting for my response. I couldn't say a word. I was frightened. The perpetrator also took a photo of you and your sister. He put the photo with you and your sister's underwear in a sealed bag, which is how we were able to identify the victims. My sister and I took our underwear, but threw it away. I mean, we could have kept them and cleaned them, but having known that that man touched them, and our picture, it made my skin crawl. It was so sinister. So creepy man who broke in, stole our underwear, and our photo. Let's not meet. Something scary happened when I went to visit my parents' new home. You might believe me, you might not, but this is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I was a student studying in Tokyo, and it was summer break, so I headed back to Okayama, a rural area in Japan. It had been about a year since I had seen my parents. Since I went off to university, they moved house, so it was all new to me when I came back. We used to live in a built-up area, but my parents had now moved to the countryside. When I say countryside, I mean there's literally nothing around except forests and mountains. So I got off the train and my parents met me at the station and drove me back to the new place, which took about 40 minutes. There was nothing but rice fields and a few residential areas along the way. There was nothing to do after the initial buzz of homecoming passed, and I grew bored quickly. I decided to take a walk to get to know the area a bit better. I managed to find a convenience store, which was good. I walked alongside a river, and then I found a mountain. It looked to be a mountain trail, and the mountain didn't look that big, and I had time to kill. Fuck it, I thought. Let's climb it. I've got nothing better to do. I put my bike at the entrance and headed up the mountain. It wasn't really high enough to be called a mountain. It only took about 30 minutes to get to the summit. At the summit there was a little park. I reached the park just as the sun was going down. I felt a bit dumb because I was used to the bright night lights of Tokyo, so when it got dark it never really bothered me. But I was in the countryside now, and when it gets dark quick, and it would be pitch black in no time. Pitch black and I'd be stuck up a mountain. I didn't like that idea so much, so I wanted to get out of there before the remnants of sunlight disappeared into the darkness. Since it took me about 30 minutes to get to the summit, I guess I could make it back down in about 20 if I hurried. I was about to scramble down the mountain when I heard a voice call out to me. A woman's voice. It was weird since I didn't notice anyone in the park at the summit. "Where are you from?" she asked. Huh. No hello or excuse me. What's up with that question? When I turned to face her, she was grinning like mad. Tokyo? It's getting dark. I better head back, I said. She didn't say a word. She just stood there grinning at me. I didn't like it. What kind of person stands there and grins at you? It was like her mouth was grinning, and that was all. Her eyes weren't smiling, if you know what I mean. It was like a fake smile. I cannot describe how uncomfortable that feeling was. Our eyes met for a few moments more, then I said, I really must be going. I started to head down the mountain as quickly as I could. I was a bit worried that she would follow me, but when I looked over my shoulder and saw that she wasn't there, I was relieved. When I got back to my bike, it was pitch black. I was just about to reach out and touch the handles of my bike when I heard a voice from behind me ask, "What's your name?" I spun round to see that creepy woman staring at me, studying me with her eyes, smiling that robotic smile. I swear I looked over my shoulder about a dozen times as I went down that mountain. How the hell did she get here so quickly and silently and just blurt out that question? I was really panicking now. This wasn't normal at all. I didn't reply, so she just asked me again. So I said a common name. Of course, it was a pseudonym. She didn't say anything in response. She just kept staring at me and smiling. "I'm going now," I said as I threw my legs over the bike and started pedaling without looking back. I wanted to calm down. My heart was racing, so I pulled into the convenience store on the way home. I wanted to read a magazine or do something to distract myself. Afterwards, I went home with no further issue. I spoke to my mother about the weird woman, but she didn't believe me. She just laughed and said, "Oh, are you sure you didn't see a ghost?" I couldn't get that strange woman out of my head. It was her horrible, insincere smile that haunted me. The more I thought about the situation, the more things seemed to make sense. For example, since she was a local to the area, she probably knew a shortcut down the mountain. That's how she was able to appear behind me so easily. And since she was local, she probably knew everybody in town. That's probably why she asked me my name and where I was from. So perhaps she wasn't as creepy as I made her out to be in my mind. But still, something was off. And I always trust my gut in these situations. I hung around my parents' home for about a week longer. Then I decided to head back to Tokyo. I was waiting to get on the bullet train when my heart sunk. I saw the woman from the mountain on the other side of the tracks. She was wearing the same clothes as the night that I saw her. Only one thing was different. She wasn't smiling. There was absolutely no sense of expression on her face. She realized that I was looking her way, locked eyes with me, and that insane grin crept across her face again. It looked as if she was saying something, but I couldn't hear her or make out what it was. Then she broke into a full-on sprint towards the station stairs in an attempt to get to my side of the tracks. She was barreling towards me when the train pulled in. I jumped on board and headed down the aisles, knocking into people, barging them aside, in an attempt to find a place to hide. I was terrified the whole journey back to Tokyo. I felt for sure that she was on the train somewhere. In fact, I'm not entirely certain she wasn't on that train. I got back to my home in Tokyo yesterday. I really hope I'll never see that woman again. I can't get her creepy smile out of my head. So creepy woman from the mountains and the train station, let's not meet again. This didn't happen to me, but it happened to my dad back in the 70s. He told me this story one night while we were camping. I'll try and tell it just the way he did. I was walking home one night from a heavy night of drinking with my work colleagues. I was pretty worse for wear. I used to use a shortcut home at the time through a park. The park was on a mountainside. It cut straight through the mountainside. From behind me I heard this weird chinking sound, like a hammer against rock or something. I turned around to see this woman creeping up behind me, holding a knife. The woman had long dark hair. She was chattering her teeth She was burying them like a chimp too. I panicked. I just sprinted towards the first light source I set eyes on. It happened to be a public toilet. What the hell was going on, I thought. I prayed that someone else would be passing through the park, or there might be a homeless guy knocking around. I have never been so desperate for help in my life. She was gaining on me. I could still hear her chattering through her rasping breaths as she chased after me. I was terrified. I could hear the knife slashing the air behind me. If someone was using that toilet, or if it was out of order, then I would surely be bottlenecked and trapped. I clattered into the door, and thankfully it was unlocked. Inside the toilet there were 4 stalls. I ran into the furthest stall on the right, and I tried my best to hide. In the stall there was a small frosted window which let in some light. I couldn't see or hear the woman anymore. I tried to keep as still as possible. I was trembling with fear, sweating from running, and I felt as if I would puke any second. I kept as still as I could for 20 minutes or so. Still, no sign of the woman. I had started to calm down at this point. I looked at my watch, and it was 2:45. I was so tired, scared, and I felt terrible. I shut my eyes for a couple of moments, and then before I knew it, I was asleep. I woke up there in the morning, so pleased to see the morning light. This isn't where my father's story ends. It was about 2 days after. My father was reading the local paper, and he came across a story. A woman had been arrested in the park he took a shortcut through by an officer working the night shift. It stated that her arrest took place around 3 a.m. The officer found her staring through a window of the public toilets. Staring at my dad, no doubt. So if that officer wasn't patrolling the park that night, he might not be alive to tell me the story. And that's where the story ends. But on my father's behalf, I'd like to say, mad, knife-wielding woman, let's not meet. Okay, thank you everybody for watching. Just like to highlight some absolutely tremendous comments I keep getting. Love everybody who comments on here. Love everybody who does the likes and subscribes and shares and all that. Really helping me out, so I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Just want to talk on a couple of things here. I really love it when you guys suggest videos and themes for videos especially. So I've got a few suggestions there. I think some of them should be on the screen now. And yeah, what a great idea. I've thought about doing this, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. We're going to do a viewer submission one. So I'd like anybody else to add some suggestions, for a standalone story, maybe one. They'll come in 4s most likely. So we'll do one on one subject on, so forth like that. So I've got a couple ideas here, but I'd like to add some more, see how many people are interested. And if your story doesn't make it into the first one, it will almost certainly make it into the second one. So yeah, let's try that one out. Also, I wanted to ask you guys if you would be interested in hearing some different kind of stories. I've done a few with the human kind of horror. So we've got break-ins, stalkers, strangers, things like that. So I was just wondering if I should try out doing some paranormal ones or some cryptid ones or just something a bit different out there, because there's a lot out there that I can translate for you guys, and it will be a lot of fun as well, I think. So let me know what you think on that one, and just thanks a lot. It's been really fun. I'm sorry it's been such a long time since the last upload. I had to move into a new place, and I'm really enjoying it here. So hopefully we can start to upload more and more. But anyway, see you next time on JN. See you next time, guys.